Make sure you got your seatbelt on, because if not, you're gonna fall off the ride and probably break your neck. That was a little aggressive. You probably won't break your neck. Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's hard to believe that it is already June, and by the time I post and edit this video it might not even be June anymore, but know that I recorded it in June and that's all that matters. So since we're already halfway through the year, I figured it would be fun to do a little check-in and talk about some of my favorite books that I've read so far this year and some of my books that were not my favorite. But that doesn't mean they were bad books, they were just not my cup of tea. To make my reading wrap up a little bit more fun, I actually want to give a category to some of my favorite books that I've read so far this year. My reading goal is 150 books. So far I've read 115, and I know that sounds like a lot, but don't be intimidated by such a large number, because the shortest book that I read was 112 pages. So please let me know in the comments how many books you've read so far this year. What are some of your favorites or least favorites, just so we can talk about it. To start things off, I want to talk about a book that was out of my comfort zone but I completely loved it, which was Look Closer by David Ellis. And this is a thriller book. I don't really read thrillers, I just dabble in that sometimes when the book is really good, because I usually don't like thriller books. But for this one, I was hooked from the very beginning, and at the end my jaw was on the floor. I needed jaw surgery to put it back in place. So in Look Closer, we have three main characters. So we have husband and wife that are married, and they have to be married for a specific amount of time for the wife to be able to touch her husband's inheritance, because he's a multi-billionaire. And then we have an attorney that comes into play a little bit later, and this is not a spoiler because you have to know about the attorney in order to get into the story. So we have the husband and wife, and they're having marital issues right before it gets to their anniversary, and the spouse immediately starts to think like, well, I think my husband's stepping out on me, I think he's trying to divorce me, and if he divorces me then I can't get any of his money, and she's after the money. So she does end up finding out that her husband is having an affair, so she hires an attorney to help her find some loopholes in this contract that she signed with her husband, so she is able to get access to his funds. And literally the entire story is just the lawyer is trying to con the wife is trying to con the husband, and the husband is just worried about his mistress, who ends up getting murdered. And then the book is just pretty much who did it. And I didn't know who did it until the very end. It was so deceptive. Like, the storyline will keep you hooked and you will not see anything. It's like you're a horse and you have those blinders on the entire time. This is one of my favorite thrillers that I've ever read, and I will definitely recommend it to people. If someone asked me what's a good thriller book that you would recommend, it would be this one. A book that made me cry is going to be Binding 13. This book is an emotional roller coaster, and you need to hold on to your seat with both hands. Make sure you got your seatbelt on, because if not, you're gonna fall off the ride and probably break your neck. That was a little aggressive. You probably won't break your neck. In Binding 13, we have two high schoolers, so it's pretty much like a coming of age book, Johnny and Shannon. Now, Shannon has been bullied all of her life. She is bullied in and outside of school, and her home life is not what most people would want it to be. So she ends up moving schools to a new school district so she could be closer to her friends and she could have some moral support. Shannon goes to this new school and she pretty much just wants to fly under the radar. She doesn't want people to notice her and try to talk to her and try to get to know her, because she has a lot of secrets that she doesn't want other people to know about, because it could put her siblings and herself in danger. So here comes Johnny, and he's like the popular boy of the school. He's the most sought out after rugby player, so all the girls want him, all the guys want to be his friends, and he ends up running into Shannon, almost giving her a concussion. It was an accident, and it's pretty much just him trying to get to know Shannon and figuring out why she acts so weird. For somebody her age, she acts very mature and she's very skittish and scared about pretty much everything. So then he just makes this his life mission to try to get to know Shannon, and in the process they end up falling in love. Their love story has a lot of hardships. It's pretty sad. It was fluffy in the aspect of like their relationship and them talking to one another, and it was other aspects outside of the relationship that was kind of like what hit your heart the most. So Keeping 13 is part 2 of the Binding 13. It is a duet, but it's nice and short and sweet, and I love these so much. And if you're looking for a sports romance, fans, you should definitely pick these up. A book that made me laugh out loud the entire time was Butchered and Blackbird by Bryony Weaver. Now this is supposed to be a dark romance rom-com, but in my opinion, I do read a lot of dark romance books and this is just as vanilla as it gets. Butchered and Blackbird follows the two main characters by the name of Rowan and Sloane, and they're both serial unalivers. They meet one night because they're actually going to go take care of the same person and end up running into one another, and then they come up with this fun game of pretty much yearly they meet up and they have a conquest of hunting a bad person. So they're doing a good deed for the world. They're hunting a bad serial unaliver that is hurting innocent people, and then whoever offs that person first wins, and then they have this weird bet, and they do it yearly. So it does take place over the spans of a few years, I believe, because it goes back and forth with them having this annual game and getting to know one another, and they're like flirting. It's just hilarious. The plot is silly, but the characters, I fell in love with them, and I will accept zero criticism in this book. It's a romance book about two serial unalivers falling in love and taking care of other serial unalivers. What more could you want? I rest my case, officer. A book that made me forget my surroundings because I was just so immersed in it was The Pucking Wrong Number by C.R. Jane. The Pucking Wrong Number follows Lincoln and Monroe. Now, Monroe has a very hard life. She was in the system because her mother died at a very young age, and her foster parents were not the best, so she ends up running away from home and just trying to make her own life and her own decisions. So she's very independent, but she is struggling, and she is of age when the book pretty much starts off. So Monroe is just trying to be a better person than what her environment was growing up. And one night she ends up getting a text message from a random phone number who happens to be Lincoln, and he was picking up a girl at a bar. He thought that she gave him her phone number, but instead she gave him Monroe's phone number by accident. So he ends up texting Monroe, and she's pretty much like, yo, who is this? Why are you texting me? Please texting me. And he thought that the girl that he tried picking up at the bar was actually trying to pull a prank on him, and he was like, I don't believe you, send me a photo of you. So Monroe ends up sending him a photo of herself to prove, hey, you've got the wrong phone number. And instead of having the effect of him saying like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna text you anymore, instead he ends up falling in love at first sight with a photo. This man is unhinged. So then Lincoln makes it his mission to find out who is this girl that he's been texting, that he texted by accident. He wants to get to know her, and then he immerses himself into her life in a way that makes her have to become codependent on him without realizing everything that he is doing to sabotage her life. Lincoln Daniels is unhinged, but at the end of the day, he honestly just wants the absolute best for Monroe, and that's why I forgot where I was for like 24 hours. I lived, breathed, and eated this entire book. A book that I expected to dislike but I ended up loving was Hawk by Jessie Hall, and I should have known because anything that Jessie Hall writes, I love. It's something about her style of writing and her storytelling skills that just draw you right in, and for Hawk it was no different. So in the story we have Nicole, Patrick, and Hawk. Now Hawk is a felon. He recently got out of jail and he goes to live with Patrick and Nicole because him and Patrick used to be friends before he ended up going to jail. Patrick and Nicole are dating, and Nicole has no idea who Hawk is. Patrick has never talked about him before. She has no idea who this mystery friend is until she walks in her house and hears this noise in her spare bedroom apartment and runs into Hawk, literally giving it to another girl from the back. That is the best intro to two people meeting ever, if I do say so myself. So Nicole and Hawk already don't have the best of introductions, and then on top of that, Patrick decides as soon as Hawk moves into their apartment that he's just going to be everywhere but at their house. He does just pretty much everything to not spend time with Nicole and be in their apartment with Hawk, which is pretty strange. So then there's this thriller aspect to it, to like there's a lot of secrets going on and a lot of mystery, and Nicole's just trying to figure out, okay, who really is this guy and why the heck does Patrick not like him but allow him to live in her house? And of course Hawk and Nicole spent a lot of time together because Patrick is no longer there, and Patrick is also a POS. So Hawk and Nicole start spending a lot of time together, and that's why I said there's a lot of tropes in this that I normally don't like, but I'm not going to say what they are because I don't want to spoil it for you, and you should read it. Now, a book that I was expecting to love, but I actually hated, was Throttled by Lauren Asher. And I was kind of disappointed by this book because I love Lauren Asher and all the books that she has written. You know, the Dreamland Billionaires books, love them. The new series that she's coming out with, like Love Redesign and Love Unwritten, I have yet to read Love Unwritten, but Love Redesigned, I completely love that book. So for Throttled, the reason I didn't really enjoy this book as much as I thought it was going to be was because the story was kind of dull and lifeless in my opinion. In Throttled, we have Noah and Maya. Noah is an F1 driver and Maya is the little sister to his rival that ended up costing him the championship the year before. And the entire story is just Noah trying to get Maya to fall in love with him because Maya is a content creator, so she gets to follow around the brand of the Bandini racers and get to do like what their daily lives are like. And so they end up spending a lot more time together and they like sneak around and fall in love, and it was a silly story. I mean, it's not bad, but to all the other books that she has written, it felt a little like there wasn't that much spice in it. And I mean spice not like sexually, I mean spice as in like somebody gives you arroz con pollo and they forgot to season the pollo. It was just a little too dull for me. You could tell from the very beginning of the story how it was going to end. Nothing surprised me, nothing really stood out to me. So it wasn't a bad book. Like I said, it really wasn't my cup of tea. Now, a book that I wish I would have read sooner is going to be Skeletons of Society by Marie Maravilla. This book is perfection. Take Sons of Anarchy and mix it with the Mexican cartel and you're gonna get this baby right here. In Skeletons of Society, we have Gunnar and Ryan. Now, Ryan is a female and she's actually running the guns for the Mexican cartel through this club that she has pretty much like remade in her image. And the local MC Bikers Club wants to start doing business with the Mexican cartel. So then Ryan's boss, who runs the Mexican cartel, pretty much tells her like, hey, you're gonna have to work with this guy. He runs the guns for the MC. His name is Gunnar, of course, on point. And so the two have to work together to figure out a way to make money for the MC's Bikers Club and for the nightclub. The ending actually had me flabbergasted because I did not see that coming. Like, I knew there was something off about a specific character, but I just didn't know what was off with them until the very ending. Imagine being slapped in the face twice. One by the actual climax of the story, because the way that things went down, I knew we were going that way and I was like, okay, I'm expecting it to go this way. And then the actual hidden plot behind the plot, that was, again, a masterpiece. This book is freaking lovely and you should definitely read it. This is one that honestly, I just wish I would have read it sooner because then I could have talked about it a lot more. A book that I think about at least once a week is Salt Kiss by Sierra Simone. I will never stop talking about this book because everything about it was just on point. Like, the I's were dotted, the T's were crossed. So Salt Kiss is a taboo romance, White Shoes. I haven't stopped talking about this book since February. I read this in February of 2024. It's currently June of 2024. And I can still tell you specifically everything that happened in this entire book. That's how good it was. So in this book we have Tristan and Mark and Isolde. Tristan is an army veteran. He did retire because he has issues that he is dealing with up here, but he doesn't know what he's going to do with his life next. So Tristan ends up getting a job with Mark as his bodyguard, and Mark is his step uncle. And Mark runs this pristine club that you can only get into by trading secrets. So you can't pay your way into the club. You have to give them secrets that will pretty much like break down governments, you know, cause World War III. He knows pretty much everything about people high up in power. And because he keeps all this secret information and evidence locked up in a vault inside of his club, he needs more security to help him keep him guarded. And that's where Tristan comes into play. But also keep Mark from being off because people know that he's the one that actually has all this information. So he's a very powerful man. So Tristan starts falling in love with Mark because he can't touch Mark, but Mark has this aura about him that like you want him to like him, you want to please him, you want him to love you. Mark and Tristan have this relationship going on. It's sort of like a secret relationship, and everybody keeps telling Tristan to not fall in love with Mike because his heart's going to be broken. And then Tristan finds out that Mark is actually going to be married to Isolde. So much things happen in this book. It's hard to just put it in a very short summary. It's a very long story. A book that I will never stop recommending is going to be A Love Letter to Whiskey by Candy Steiner. This book took my heart through the ringer. I don't think I have ever experienced so many different emotions while reading a book. I mean, I was happy, I was sad, I was anxious, I was angry, I was spooked, I was shocked, I was all the things, all the emotions. And it's a powerful 600-page book that will take you to the moon and back. a couple of times, not just once. So in this book, we have B and Jamie. Now, B and Jamie end up meeting when they were in high school, so it's more like a coming of age. This story takes place over the span of 10 years, so it is one of the slowest burns that you will ever read in your entire life. And the way that the book starts out, you would think that B was addicted to drinking alcohol. Like, she was an alcoholic because she was obsessed with whiskey and drinking whiskey and being in the presence of whiskey, but then you figure out that whiskey is a person. We pretty much just go through the story of right person, wrong time. B and Jamie meet when they're very young, but then Jamie ends up dating B's best friend in high school, and then by the time that they break up, he ends up going to college because he's a year ahead of her, so then she stays back, and then they end up meeting in college, and then goes down, and it's pretty much just like I said, right person, wrong time. They both love each other so much, but things just kept getting in their way, and you just want them to work it out, and you want them to be together so badly. Like you will root for them to be together like you need air to breathe. I'm so glad my best friend told me to read it, because ever since then I've been telling my other friends to read it so everybody can feel exactly how I felt, so I don't feel alone in my feelings for this book. That is literally perfection. If you were to tell me that A Love Letter to Whiskey was a story written about an actual couple, I would believe you. I can actually see this being a nonfiction book about two people trying to find their ways to one another and completely missing the train that would take them to the station where the other person was. Over and over and over and over and over again. Thank you so much for watching my channel. I appreciate your support. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like button so you can get notified the next time that I post a video, whenever that is. Right now, I'm just going with the vibes. Okay, bye.